Hello again, everyone. We are back. Inside Sports is on the air, and we are glad you're with us. I'm Mark Keller. I hope you had a wonderful holiday season and have stuck with those New Year's resolutions up to this point. One of mine was to be more hairy in 2019. So far, so good on that one for me. But time to get down to business now. The time for short work weeks has passed, unfortunately. And believe it or not, we're closing in on the midpoint of the winter sports season. We're here to get you caught up, and we have the perfect guys to do that with three of our insiders from Herald Mail Media. First up will be Kevin Dunleavy to talk about boys basketball, where things are looking up for a number of teams in Washington County. After that, Bob Parcelletti will join me to discuss the first half of the season in girls basketball, including a pair of Washington County coaches who celebrated milestone victories last week. Then sports editor Andy Mason will talk about his area of expertise, high school wrestling, where one Washington County team stands head and shoulders above the rest right now. We'll also take a look at what people have been saying on social media about the local sports scene over the last few weeks and tell you how you can be part of the show by hitting us up on our social media platforms. So let's get this rolling. It's great to be back. Lots more to come on Inside Sports. Stay with us.
When you elevate nurses, you reduce an entire town's blood pressure. Specialized medical training means top nurses, top care. Meritus. Healthcare transformed. How do you give a patient healthier healthcare? Give her doctor, nurse, PA, and therapist the same health record. Introducing electronic health records. One patient, one record, one click. Meritus. Healthcare transformed.
For the last 2 years of my education, I was going to work full-time, school full-time, and raising 2 young children by myself. I think that anybody who's desiring to continue their education or to advance their career, I think that USMH provides convenient location, affordable pricing, and again, they have instructors that really care about sending their students off with the experience and education that they need to succeed.
When it comes to hearing loss, who will be taking care of you? Audiologist Dr. Karen Hamilton is Hagerstown's hearing doctor, working to improve the quality of life for those with hearing loss. At Audiology Services, Dr. Hamilton focuses on evaluation and diagnosis to provide solutions for treating hearing loss. Using the latest technology, she programs hearing aids to meet your unique needs and ensures they fit properly and comfortably. Audiology Services participates with most insurance companies and will check benefits and file claims on your behalf. Dr. Hamilton and her team also serve the community through Hagerstown Hearing, which focuses on providing crystal clear sound in places such as theaters, churches, offices, and homes. Hagerstown Hearing installs looping systems that allows those with hearing loss to enjoy speech clarity and noise reduction, providing an experience like never before. To learn more about Audiology Services and Hagerstown Hearing, call 301-790-3300. Audiology Services and Hagerstown Hearing, providing crystal clear sound.
Welcome back to Inside Sports. Going to talk some basketball now, boys basketball. Starting out today's show, and we've got Kevin Dunleavy here. Kevin, good to have you with us. And things kind of looking up in Washington County this year. A bunch of teams with much better records than they had a year ago. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, for some of the teams, there was nowhere to go but up. But you know, everybody has been a little bit improved. Even the really good teams have been improved, North and Williamsport. So it's been more competitive and more enjoyable to go out and watch these games.
You mentioned in some of your notes here that one of the biggest surprises, Smithsburg, has been a big surprise this year. What's kind of been the MO there? What's been the turnaround?
Well, they graduated their top 3 scorers, top 3 players from last year, and lo and behold, they've got now a deep rotation, a bunch of guys that were, reserves pretty much last year, and some guys up from the JV. They've got 3 sophomores that are in the starting lineup that have really made a big difference. Morgan Hyman, Colin Witt, and the guy who really has been a difference maker has been Ryan Snyder, who does a little bit of everything well. I think he's their leading rebounder, and he's a perimeter guy. So, they're a completely different team. They're up tempo now. They score a lot. Tim Kelby had an interesting stat the other day that I think they had scored 70 points in 5 or 6 games this year, and they hadn't done that in like the previous 4 or 5 years. So, wow. I mean, it tells you how much different of a team they are.
Yeah, absolutely. And, two of the teams kind of on the top of the heap as far as public schools go, North Hagerstown and Williamsport both with 8 wins, and they've got a matchup coming up here. How's that squaring up?
Yeah, that's an interesting matchup because they've been on the same level for the last few years, but Williamsport has beaten them every time since Ryan Grable's been the coach. He's 10-0 against them, which is almost inconceivable considering North has been a good team throughout that period. And all the games have been relatively close. Most of them decided in the fourth quarter. It's just that Williamsport has figured out a way to pull those out. So it's always interesting. And this year, they're both really going in strong. North has 5 straight wins. Williamsport has 8 now.
Let's dig a little deeper on North Hagerstown. Who are some of the catalysts there for the Hubs?
Well, Christian Teague, he was the best big man, public school big man coming back this year, and he's just a relentless player. He works so hard, and he's talented at 6'7". So that's a great combination to have in your go-to guy. Lally Richards, the point guard, Junior, has really grown into the role of being sort of the leader, the guy who can take the ball off the dribble and make things happen. And then Ryan Sox has been tremendous last year he was sort of a glue guy, didn't score much, and this year he's a real threat as a rebounder and scorer. So they've kind of found something with fewer players in the rotation, but it seems like the rotation being smaller has kind of helped them along a little bit.
How about Williamsport? Some individuals there as well. I know Lincoln Ball's a name that instantly comes to mind. Talk a little bit about him and what he's done so far this season.
He's been tremendous this year. He looks more athletic this year, and I think that shows how serious he is about basketball, about developing his body and really getting stronger and quicker. And I haven't seen their stats yet. I bet he leads the team in all 5 categories: points, rebounds, steals, assists, blocks, which is really unusual for a guy. But he's the unusual dimension at 6'5" and a point guard. He was the MVP of the Daub Classic, and he only had 3 points in the championship game. So that tells you, and there wasn't any argument for him not being the MVP. That's his effect on the game.
So who else is he getting involved in the offense?
Caleb Bowers has really improved this year. He's a junior and a shooter, and he's also become a playmaker. He's a good passer, and they have really worked. They've been in the lineup together for 3 years. They really work well together, and then they've gotten a couple of big guys involved, seniors Ray Becks and AJ Norris, who have really come along nicely this year.
Touch on some of the other public school teams, and again, going back to that idea that there's improvement among these teams. Yeah. Hancock and South Hagerstown, let's talk a little bit about what they've done so far this year.
Hancock finished last year strong. I think they won 3 of their last 6, maybe, considering they hadn't won any before that. They lost like the first 12 games. And they've kind of continued that momentum. What they found at the end of last year, Justice Allen is a really good leader and point guard for them. And they lost 2 starters early in the year, and it hasn't really hurt them that much because they've sort of found something. They're not going to challenge for a region title or anything, but a 500 record would be really nice for them. They're 5-4 now, and things are really looking up for that program under Ed Morris in his second year. I think there was some adjustment. Tough adjustment that first year.
Mm-hmm. And South Hagerstown under Chad Brashear is also kind of rebuilding things there on the south side of Hagerstown.
Same thing in his second year, and I think he's figured some things out. Last year they never settled on a rotation. This year they've got a really tighter, smaller rotation, and they look much more cohesive and much more able to score in the half court and stuff. Last year the only way they were good was if they get into a full court game, and I think Davion Spann has been a big difference maker. So is Shane Miner.
Certainly don't want to forget the private schools either. And St. Maria Goretti obviously comes to mind first there, and they're having quite a season over there at Goretti as well this year.
Yeah, they lose Matt Miller, tremendous coach, and Sidney McRae has stepped in, his longtime assistant, and they haven't missed a beat. In fact, they have a better record now than they had at this time last year. They've won 2 tournaments, including the Junior Orange Bowl down in Miami, where they beat North Miami. So you beat a team in their backyard who's a really legitimate big-time team. R.J. Blakeney had 30 points in that game, and he's been a little inconsistent this year, but he is so explosive, and he's getting a lot of college interest. It'll be interesting to see what he decides on, and I'm sure he got a little more interest based on his performance in that tournament.
And Goretti still in the mix there in the Baltimore Catholic League as well?
definitely they play Mount St. Joe's. By the time this airs, they will have already played that game, but that'll be a big one to decide whether or not they have a chance to take a run at the regular season title.
All right. Kevin, thanks a bunch. Appreciate it. Stay with us. Bob Parsaletti's here next to talk about girls basketball.
We've been coming to Rick's for about 3 or 4 years. The staff at Rick's is wonderful.
It is the cheers of Hagerstown.
Everybody knows your name.
They've actually become a lot of our friends.
Treat you like family. They know you by name.
It's nice to be able to go somewhere as quality as this that's not a chain restaurant.
The food is unique. They get creative. It's fresh food.
And they make great drinks.
The word is in. Local, casual, and always epic. That's Rick's Cafe.
If you add it up, 12 spots a year for 25 years, close to 300 different commercials I've used Antietam Cable Production for. In terms of the experience with the production department, the truth is, we've become friends because we've done it so often. The staff is very, very professional. They make it easy for me to do the spot. That's the biggest thing. And we have a lot of fun doing it. And it works. It brings people to the dealership. And that's all I can ask.
Welcome back into Inside Sports. We're switching from boys basketball now to girls basketball. Bring in Herald Mail insider Bob Parsaletti. Bob, good to have you back with us after the new year. And we're going to talk about Smithsburg first. And one of the things you mentioned to me, a lot of the same players on this team, but a new coach this year, new philosophy has them playing a little bit differently. Tell us the difference between new coach and old coach at Smithsburg.
Well, be honest with you, they're the exact same cast. Pretty much everybody's back from last year. Last year under Chip Bakedel, they were a pressing team that just tried to run down the floor and score, basically kind of like the Kansas City Chiefs, outscore the other team and just hope the defense gives you enough to get by. This year under Charles Burnett, they've decided to go and play they're actually playing half-court defense. They've drilled it. They've bought into it, which is the biggest thing. I mean, usually a team that's used to running around, it's kind of hard to discipline them into an area where they're playing half-court defense. And they press, but they fall back into this man-to-man defense and have caused the turnovers, which allows them to run like they were before. But the difference is they're a little bit tougher to score against. So they don't have to rely so much on getting the ball out and moving, and they're still getting the same amount of turnovers. So I think this makes them a very dangerous team with the experience of the defense.
Do the results bear it out? Are they showing the same kind of success?
I mean, yeah, they've been holding their own. They've been winning. The big thing is to get past some hurdles. One of the hurdles was to try to beat Catoctin, which was a team that took them out of last year's state tournament. But they failed in the trip up there. But it's still young.
Still young. Not quite at the halfway point of the season yet. But one team that we always talk about in girls basketball has a lot of successes, of course, Williamsport and Coach Kevin Murphy there getting his 100th win against Brunswick last week, and you were there for that game, and you've seen a lot of Coach Murphy's teams over the years, and how does this one stack up against the others? Is this a typical Kevin Murphy Wildcats team?
Well, I guess the best way I can characterize it is that great coaches or good coaches, and we'll throw out there as the New England Patriots. They have a wide change in their personnel every year. They basically run the same set, or same philosophy. They just fit it in and tailor it to whatever they need to be done. Same could be said for, say, football around here in Boonesboro with Clayton Andrews. He runs the same offense every year. Well, Kevin runs an offense that moves the ball, but his big thing is playing defense and tough man-to-man defense. And they still do that. I mean, he'll tell you that he's got all these young players and he doesn't know what they're going to do. They don't stay, they don't have the focus to stay the course for the full game. But that defense takes away a lot of ills. And, they've been producing. They've got 3 losses, I think, so far. But they're still in every game because of that defense.
Right. Well, we mentioned Bob was at that game where Coach Murphy got his 100th win. Here's a little clip from that game.
Hey fans, just want to let you know Coach Murphy just picked up his 100th victory.
It's kind of typical Kevin Murphy, right? Just it's a big deal, but it's not a big deal to get that 100th win.
Well, I mean, I can see his point. I mean, why celebrate this? There's still a lot of work to be done. This is just let's hit the pinata and go on to the next thing type thing, you know? I mean, there's, the 200's going to be the same thing. 300, if he stays around for that, it's going to be the same thing. The time to celebrate them is at the end when you're done. But right now, there's still work to be done.
Well, Coach Murphy wasn't the only coach to hit a milestone last week. Boonesboro's Sam Connolly also getting his 100th win, also against Brunswick last week. And a lot of similarities, I think, between Kevin Murphy and Sam Connolly.
Well, Sam got there first. He did it back on December 19th. And, it took him a little bit longer. He's been in his 8th year, and Kevin's in 6th and a half, I think it took Kevin to get there. But with Sam, they're similar to me. They both are those coaches that do a good job, understand the situation, work with the girls they have, and make the best of it. And they don't really seem like they panic at all. And I mean, kids grab that and kind of live off of that. With Sam, I said that he's basically a guy that depends on his guards to get him going. That's the people that push him up the floor. That's the people that drive to the basket, and then he gets points on the inside. And he's done a great job over there. And like I said, these guys are the best of friends, but they're the best of competitors too.
Right. Real quick, got a couple teams that we want to mention as well. Hancock, kind of a surprise team this year that could make a little bit of noise, maybe?
They have some. I mean, they have juniors that are leading the way, but they've been playing for 3 years on the varsity, and that's Chloe Stotler and Sarah Kearns. But they have a cast that's not very big, not a lot of girls, not a lot of tall girls, but they contribute. And they're going to be in a lot of games. I think the thing that's going to get them is they play smaller schools, so they might not get a lot of the competition that might help them get really, really good. But I think they can be a team that can be hanging around for a while.
From small school to big school, North Hagerstown also shown a lot of improvement this year.
Well, the thing about North is that they're still basically. You can win games with one person, and for them it's Madison Mertz. If you look at the stats, she's all over him. But what she does is she brings a lot of other girls into play. She passes the ball, she gets steals, she makes defense, she drives to the basket, she allows rebounds, and they've been able to kind of feed off of her a little bit. I don't know if they'd say that, but it sure looks like it, that they feed off of what she does for other girls to come in and make contributions, and they're winning off of that. And that's what you're playing for.
Right, absolutely. Bob, thanks a bunch for joining us today. We'll have Andy Mason coming in and talk high school wrestling after this break.
Frostburg's program at USMH was definitely closer to home, allowed me to stay at home while I had the opportunity to substitute in Washington County Public Schools. The scholarships at USMH really allowed me to walk out, being able to pay it off much more quickly and being able to pursue my graduate degree at a quicker rate. I would say to anyone considering USMH, allows you to build better relationships in the community and something that's definitely a great opportunity to pursue and leads to a better career.
We've been coming to Rick's for about 3 or 4 years. The staff at Rick's is wonderful.
It is the Cheers of Hagerstown.
Everybody knows your name.
They've actually become a lot of our friends.
Treat you like family. They know you by name.
It's nice to be able to go somewhere as quality as this that's not a chain restaurant.
The food is unique. They get creative. It's fresh food.
And they make great drinks.
The word is in. Local, casual, and always epic. That's Rick's Cafe.
Welcome back to Inside Sports. Going to shift gears now from the hard court onto the mats and talk some high school wrestling. Herald Mail insider Andy Mason here with us. Andy, good to have you with us. And we start out talking about wrestling. We talk about one of the teams that's always one of the tops in Washington County, and that's Williamsport. Nothing really changes this year. They're on top again, right?
Yeah, well, last year they won the county title for the first time in several years. North had been on top for a while, but now Williamsport, they were on top last year, and they're really on top this year. I mean, they are clearly the best team in the county. And not just best team in the county, they're one of the best teams in the state. This is as good a Williamsport team as we've seen in a long time. They're ranked 8th in the state of Maryland, 3rd among public schools. And so, they're very strong. Glen Elg and Damascus are the two other public school teams ahead of them. Unfortunately, all three of those teams are Class 2A teams. Now, there's no longer they no longer keep team scores at the region tournaments or the state tournament. So if you're going to win any kind of state title, it's got to be through the duels now. And they now have 4 classifications, 1A, 2A, 3A, 4A for the duels. So you got the top 3 MPSSA teams in the state, all 2A, and they're all competing for one title. And Damascus and Williamsport are both in the West region. So, one of those teams isn't going to go to the state duels.
Sounds like an exciting time come tournament time for Williamsport,
Yeah.
but win or lose, be up there. Tell us about some of the individuals on Williamsport that are possibly making some noise.
Yeah, well, they're sort of led by Williamsport's got a great team. They returned almost everyone from last year when they went 30-3 and won the county title. Last year they had 3 kids place at the state tournament. They were on the state podium. That's the ultimate goal. Taquan Johnson, Brandon Oyster, and Zayden Meyer. They were their 3 state place winners last year. All 3 are back. Should be on the podium again this year, if not higher places. Johnson and Oyster last year both 3rd. Meyer was 4th. And then they have got a number of other kids. They've got some freshmen contributing. They have a number of kids who should have state podium goals this year.
One of the things with Williamsport is they've always had a great feeder program, and obviously that's continued down there.
Yes.
In Williamsport as well. You talk about North Hagerstown and that they were on top for so long, and now Boonesboro may be kind of making some headway and
Yeah, Boonesboro has a great team this year. They've already lost to Williamsport in a dual meet. They can't beat Williamsport. No offense to Boonesboro, that's how good Williamsport is. But yeah, Boonesboro might be the second best team in the county. They're 5-2 in duels right now. Just this past weekend, they won the Davison Classic at Randallstown. There were 24 teams there. They got first place. They got weight class titles from Sean Reinbolt, Max Christ, and Tristan Cook. So they're looking really good right now. However, I will say this: last year they won that tournament too, and then 5 weeks later got last in the county tournament. They peaked too early last year. I know Coach Sean Smith is really hoping they keep the momentum going another month or plus.
Boonesboro's been a team over the last couple years that, like you said, last year with Randall kind of peaking, that they've shown some signs of.
Oh yeah, they're different. It's different than it was 15 years ago when they had like 8 wrestlers and they couldn't win a dual meet because they were forfeiting half the weight classes. So it's entirely different now. They got full lineup, great coaching, great. It's entirely different at Boonesboro right now.
Let's talk about the Hagerstown schools, and we'll actually start with South Hagerstown. They had a pretty good outing last weekend down in Rockville.
Yeah, they got 3rd out of 11 teams. They now, I think they went 7-2. They now have a dual meet record of 9-5. Now the big match, it's happening tonight. When you're watching this, it will have already happened, but North-South. Last year South Hagerstown beat North for the first time, ended a 25-year losing streak to North. And that was a huge deal. And this year, it's a toss-up. We'll see. We'll see what happens. It should be a real exciting match, but that's going to, North is rebuilding right now. North's 8-12 in dual meets. We haven't seen them with a losing record, this far into the season in years. But they're still solid. The county's very solid this year. North's still solid. That match is going to be a toss-up.
And you mentioned North Hagerstown, and obviously a rebuilding year of sorts, and when you lose a wrestler of the caliber of Aaron Brooks.
Now he was just one guy, but still,
exactly.
But still, when you walk into the gym and you've got a world champ Aaron Brooks is, he set the bar ridiculously high.
Right.
He's like a once-in-a-lifetime wrestler. He wasn't just 4-time county, he was a world champion.
Yeah.
You know, he's probably the best public school wrestler in the history of this state, ever. You know, that's, you know, we're never going to see another wrestler like him.
Right. So it's hard for any team to kind of live up to that level. We don't want to go without mentioning Smithsburg. Smithsburg with a pretty decent record at this point.
Yeah, they don't have many guys. I think they started the season with just 16 guys, but man, they're making the most of them. They've had 18 dual meets. They've won 12 of them. They just went 5-0 at the Fort Hill duels. They're looking pretty good.
What's coming up? I got about a minute left here. What's coming up the rest of the season here? And
well, this weekend's kind of exciting. We got the Rebel duels at South Hagerstown. That's an event that seems to be just getting bigger and maybe a little more competitive every year. Williamsport's going to be there. They win it more times than they don't, and they should win it again this year. But it's got a lot of county flavor. We got Boonesboro there, St. James, and obviously hosts South, and that should be a good event.
So obviously we're looking at Williamsport in terms of teams going forward. And can any of these other teams kind of have a shot at doing something come dual season?
Yeah, Boonesboro could get to the region duels. They did last year. Maybe South again. They got there last year for the first time in 3A. Yeah, we'll have to see. But we're about 4 weeks out from that, and then things really get rolling. Then we got the county tournament, the region tournaments, the state tournament.
It'll be the fun season, right? Yeah. 4 weeks, it'll roll right by. Yeah. Andy, thanks for joining us here today. Appreciate it. Have our social media segment coming up next. Stay with us right here.
For the last 2 years of my education, I was going to work full-time, school full-time, and raising 2 young children by myself. I think that anybody who's desiring to continue their education or to advance their career, I think that USMH provides convenient location, affordable pricing, and again, they have instructors that really care about sending their students off with the experience and the education that they need to succeed.
Welcome back to Inside Sports. Time to look online now as we close out today's show with our social media segment. We take a peek at what people have been talking about on Twitter and Facebook over the last few weeks here in the area. There's not a single social media post to show on this subject because there probably were hundreds. Washington County lost a giant in its world of sports just before Christmas when Dwight Scott passed away. You didn't have to attend Boonesboro High School to recognize just what Coach Scott meant not only to the community in South County, but all of Washington County and beyond. He was as widely revered, respected, and loved as anyone in this county, and that reverence, respect, and love extended far beyond just sports, as evidenced in the scores of tributes that filled Facebook and Twitter when word began to trickle out of his passing. We didn't have time in this week's program to talk at length about Coach Scott, but we're going to make time next week to hear some of the stories and anecdotes that helped define this Washington County icon. Here's one that was retweeted by St. James Sports. The original tweet is from Mark Coberly at Sports Health Guy, who says, "This graphic confirms what I've observed in major college athletics for nearly 25 years. Multi-sport athletes bring more to the table and have a higher development ceiling and are exposed to more different styles of coaching and competitive environments." What that graphic shows is that among the 4 universities that played in this year's college football playoff, Alabama, Clemson, Notre Dame, and Oklahoma, anywhere from 70 to 82% of their recruits over the last 5 years have been multi-sport athletes in high school. With the proliferation of travel teams in youth sports over the last 10 to 15 years, more and more parents have tried to focus their young athletes on only one sport, supposedly to better their chances of getting an athletic scholarship in that single sport. Now, these numbers show that path might not necessarily be the right one, that building a rounded athlete could at least be as effective a route as homing in on a single sport. If nothing else, it's food for thought. Hey, if you're heading out to a game or a meet or a match, remember to reach out to us or tag us on social media and let us know about all the cool stuff that happens before, during, and after the games or events. On Twitter, we are at InsideSportsOL. On Facebook, Instagram, and Snapchat, it's at InsideSportsNow. If you do that, we could include your social media post in this segment next week. But that's all the time we have this week on Inside Sports. Thanks to Kevin Dunleavy, Bob Parcelletti, and Andy Mason for being here, and thank you for joining us. Have a great weekend. We'll see you back here next week on The Inside.
Hey, your sisters and your brothers, your haters and your lovers, You gotta get up in the streets. Hey, don't complain, mother. They